What if I told you that the greatest obstacle to achieving the life you desire is the very effort you are using to attain it? You have been taught to strive, to struggle, to wage war against your circumstances, believing that victory is a reward for your exhaustion. You have been trying to force open a door that was never locked, using the brute strength of your will, only to find yourself weary and your desire still out of reach. But I am here to reveal a profound and liberating truth. The creative power of the universe does not respond to the force of your hands, but to the feeling of your heart. It does not yield to struggle. It surrenders to assumption. Over the next hour, you will not learn how to work harder. You will learn a forgotten law of creation, a law that teaches you how to stop chasing success from the outside, and instead become the person to whom success is naturally and inevitably drawn from within. The choice is before you. Continue to be a warrior fighting a losing battle against a world of shadows, or learn the secret to becoming the master architect of your own reality. Stay and discover the art of feeling. For a moment, take a deep breath. Let go of every thought that ties you to the world outside, to the evidence of your senses, to the history that you believe has defined you, and to the future you so anxiously pursue. There is something I must tell you tonight, a truth so simple, so fundamental, that it has been hidden in plain sight throughout the ages, obscured by the noise of the world and the frantic teachings of men. And once you truly grasp it, once you allow it to permeate the very marrow of your being, your life as you have known it will cease to be. You have been searching, you've been striving, hoping, praying, and working, believing that the keys to the life you desire are to be found somewhere out there. You have been taught that success is a fortress to be conquered, that abundance is a prize to be won, that love is a treasure to be found. And so you have played the part of the warrior, the seeker, the tireless laborer, waging a noble but ultimately exhausting war against the perceived limitations of your world. You have been told that your effort is your virtue, that your exhaustion is a badge of honor. You have sacrificed your peace of mind on the altar of your ambition. You have traded your inner serenity for a frantic and ceaseless motion, believing this to be the necessary price of victory. You have learned to push the great river of life, believing that with enough force, enough willpower, enough sheer dogged persistence, you can compel it to bend to your will. But I ask you now, with a sincere and quiet seriousness, how has this philosophy truly served you? Has your frantic striving brought you a profound and lasting peace? Has your constant hustle delivered unto you a deep and abiding sense of fulfillment? Or has it left you weary in your bones, anxious in your spirit, and with the gnawing, persistent feeling that no matter how hard you work, no matter how fast you run, you are still somehow falling behind? That the finish line perpetually recedes as you advance? I have come here tonight to tell you that you are not tired because your dream is too big. You are tired because your method is fundamentally flawed. You are not failing because the world is against you. You are failing to see that the world is only you pushed out. You have been trying to row a small and fragile boat with the brute force of your own two arms directly against the magnificent and powerful current of a great and mighty river. Your effort has been admirable, but your direction has been tragically misinformed. This brings us to the very heart of the matter, the great misunderstanding. It is the belief that the outer world of circumstance is the cause, and your inner world of thought and feeling is the effect. You've been living life in reverse. You wait for the promotion to feel successful. You wait for the money to arrive to feel wealthy. You wait for the applause of the world to feel worthy. You wait for another to show you love before you will feel love. You are in effect a servant to your own reflection. You are a beggar standing before a mirror, pleading with the image to smile first. Think on the sheer futility of this act. You can plead, you can bargain, You can shout at the reflection. You can even attempt to polish the glass in the hopes of a better image. But the reflection cannot and will not smile until you, the source of the reflection, smile first. It has no power of its own. It is a perfect, impersonal, and unflinching shadow of the being who stands before it. I say to you with all the certainty of a natural law, the world is only your mirror. It can do nothing but reflect back to you the sum total of your own consciousness. It is a perfect, three-dimensional representation of what you assume to be true. And the great work of your life is not to polish the mirror, nor to bargain with the reflection, but to go within and change the man. For as you change the man, the reflection must by its very nature change without a single ounce of outside effort. This is the great reversal, the awakening that separates the master from the slave. The slave to circumstance believes, when my world changes, my feelings will change. The master of reality knows, when my feelings change, my world must change. The cause is within, the effect is without. All that you behold, though it appears solid and real, is nothing more than the crystallized residue of your past states of consciousness. Your bank account is a reflection of your past consciousness of lack or abundance. Your relationships are a reflection of your past consciousness of love or loneliness. Your health is a reflection of your past consciousness of vitality or sickness. You are not living in a world. You are living out of a state of consciousness, and it is your unchallenged occupation of a particular state that is the sole cause of the phenomena of your life. Poverty is not a lack of money. It is the unchallenged occupation of a state of mind that accepts lack as natural. Success is not the accumulation of accolades. It is the persistent occupation of a state of mind that assumes achievement as its birthright. The mistake you have been making is that you have been trying to change the effect while leaving the cause untouched. You have been trying to rearrange the furniture in a burning house. You have been fighting with shadows. The moment you cease this futile outer battle and turn your attention to the one and only cause, your own consciousness, your own imaginal activity, is the moment you pick up the reins of your own destiny. Let us paint a clearer picture of these two paths, these two men who walk the same earth but live in entirely different universes. The first man is the prisoner of the mirror. His life is a reaction. He rises in the morning and immediately looks to the mirror of the world to tell him who he is. The news tells him to be afraid. His bank account tells him he is poor. A critical word from another tells him he is unworthy. His entire day is a series of emotional and physical reactions to the images that the mirror of his past consciousness has projected. He believes he is a victim of a world that happens to him. His energy is tense, anxious, and forceful, for he is in a constant state of battle with his own reflection. The second man is the master of the sword. He too rises in the morning, but he does not look to the outer world to inform him of his reality. He knows that he is the source of that world. Before he engages with the shadows of the day, he first goes within to the substance. In the quiet of his own mind, he decides what reality he will project. He assumes the state of being he wishes to experience. He feels himself to be the man he wants to be. He smiles into the mirror of his own imagination first. He then walks out into the world, not as a reactor, but as a creator. He knows that the circumstances he will encounter that day are temporary and malleable. They are the old reflection, and he pays them no mind, for he is secure in the new reality he has established within. His energy is not tense, it is calm. It is not anxious, it is certain. He does not need to push the river, for he knows that by establishing his inner state, he has already commanded the river's destination. He does not chase success. He, by his very state of being, embodies it. and the world must rearrange itself to reflect this truth. This entire doctrine, this entire blueprint for a new and more powerful life is designed to transform you from your very core, from a prisoner of the mirror into a master of the source. And to do this, we must first lay down the heavy and inefficient tools of force and pick up for the first time the light and infinitely more powerful instruments of feeling. The great secret, the forgotten power that lies dormant within you is this: feeling. The secret to creation lies not in what you think, but in what you feel to be true. It is your ability to assume, to believe, and most importantly, to feel that which you desire is already a present factual reality. Right now, I ask you again, what is it that you want? Is it love? Is it a success that the world would call miraculous? Is it wealth beyond your current measure? Or a state of health that seems impossible? It does not matter. For the mechanism of creation is the same for all things. All things are birthed from the same womb of imagination and given life by the same force of feeling. All things are not only possible, they are waiting for you to claim them, not through struggle, but through the assumption of the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The moment you allow yourself to truly step into the inner reality of your wish fulfilled, not as a hope, not as a dream, but as a present fact, the unseen forces of the universe move in ways you cannot and need not conceive to bring it into your world of form. You do not need the world's permission. You do not need to beg, to struggle, or to chase. You only need to shift your state of being within. You need only to accept, without resistance and with a profound sense of relief, that your desire is a finished fact. You are not creating it. You are merely allowing the reality you have chosen in imagination to become visible to your senses. Tonight, and for the remainder of our time together, we will embark on a great journey. This is not a lecture of mere motivation. This is a strategic briefing on the mechanics of creation. First, we will explore the true nature of reality itself, understanding the primacy of imagination as the one and only cause. Then, we will learn the very language of God, the language of the subconscious, and discover with absolute clarity why feeling is the secret. We will then confront the great enemy of your manifestation, the tyranny of the senses, and learn the art of detachment from the world of shadows. And finally, I will give you the key to the sacred workshop, the practical method for using the state akin to sleep to impress your subconscious mind with your new reality and bring your desires from the unseen into the world of men. The time for pleading with the mirror is over. The time to become the master of the source has begun. Let us proceed. We have now crossed the threshold. You have accepted the great and liberating premise that you are not a victim of your world, but the sole and sovereign cause of it. You have stood before the mirror of reality and have made the courageous choice to cease your pleading with the reflection and to instead become the master of the source. But what is this source? What is this profound, invisible, creative power from which all things proceed? To truly wield this power, we must do more than simply acknowledge it. We must dissect it. We must understand its nature, its substance, and its mechanics with the precision of a master scientist. We are here to perform an anatomy of God. And this brings us to the first, the most foundational, and the most world-altering of all principles. It is the bedrock upon which this entire doctrine is built, and without which all else is but shifting sand. We must now explore, in its full and magnificent depth, the first principle, the primacy of imagination. Let me begin with a statement that may startle you, a statement that may challenge every belief you have held about yourself and your world. I am not speaking metaphorically. I am not speaking poetically. I am stating a fact of creation, as immutable as the law of gravity. Your own wonderful human imagination is the creative power of God. The ancient teachers told you that you were made in the image of God. This was not a statement about your physical form. It was a statement about your inner being, the power that creates worlds. The one and only creative power in the universe is not separate from you. It is your very self. It is your imagination. When you are imagining, you are performing the sacred and holy act of creation. You are wielding the very power that dreamed the stars into existence and that holds the planets in their courses. To grasp this, you must perform a great inversion in your own mind. You have been trained to live in a world where facts are supreme. You believe in the solidity of the chair you sit in, the reality of the money in your account, the finality of a doctor's diagnosis. You believe that this physical sensory world is the one and only reality, and that your imagination is a secondary phantom-like place for idle fantasy and wishful thinking. Tonight, you must invert this. You must understand that the world you see with your physical eyes is the world of shadows. It is the world of echoes. It is a three-dimensional, lagging reflection of a far more real, far more solid, and far more fundamental world. And that world is the world of your imagination. What you do in imagination is the one and only cause. What you experience in the physical world is merely the effect, the shadow cast by your true creative activity. Let us draw a clear line between these two realms. The physical world, let us call it the world of Caesar, is the kingdom of effect. It is a world of hardened history. Everything you see in it is the crystallized residue of past imaginal acts, either your own or the collective imaginal acts of humanity that you have consented to. It is a world governed by time, by delay, by process. It is the world of the cross you must bear. But the world of imagination is the kingdom of cause. It is the eternal now. In imagination, there is no time. There is no delay. An act performed in imagination is an act performed in eternity, and it is done the very moment it is conceived. It is the womb of all creation, the source from which all physical manifestation proceeds. The man who is a slave to circumstance lives his entire life in the world of Caesar. He is a warrior fighting with shadows, trying to change the effects, never realizing he is powerless there. He is a man perpetually rearranging the echoes of the past. The master, the awakened soul, knows that his true work is not in the world of shadows. His work is to retreat from the battlefield of the physical world and enter the creative sanctuary of his own mind. For he knows that a victory won in the world of imagination must, by a divine law, result in a triumphant procession in the world of Caesar. Let me tell you a story, a parable of two sculptors, that you may understand this principle, not just with your mind, but with your soul. In ancient Greece, two brilliant apprentices were given their final test. Each was led to an identical, massive, and formless rock of marble, and was told, within this stone create a masterpiece. What? The first sculptor, whose name was Lycomedes, was a master of effort. He looked upon the great stone as an adversary. He saw it as a stubborn, resistant thing that he must conquer through the sheer force of his will and the sweat of his brow. He attacked the stone. For weeks he fought it, his hammer and chisel ringing with the sound of struggle. He would toil until exhaustion, his mind filled with the anxiety of the task, his muscles aching with the strain of his labor. He was trying to impose a form upon the stone. And in the end, to the applause of the crowd, he produced a statue that was technically perfect, a marvel of human effort. But it was cold. It was lifeless. It was a monument to his great struggle. The second sculptor, whose name was Phaedrus, was a master of a different art. He approached the stone not as an enemy, but as a secret to be revealed. He did not look at the stone. He looked through it. For days he did nothing but sit before the marble, in a state of quiet, receptive contemplation. He was not idle. He was performing the one and only act of creation. In his imagination, he was seeing the perfect form of the God that was already sleeping within the stone. He saw the curve of the shoulder, the line of the jaw, the graceful fall of the drapery, all as a present, living reality, merely veiled by the excess marble. His work then was not a struggle. It was not an act of forceful creation. It was a joyful and loving act of revelation. When he finally picked up his tools, he did not attack the stone. He danced with it. His every strike was not an act of imposition, but an act of liberation. He was simply chipping away all that was not his finished masterpiece. He was removing the veil that concealed the form that he had already seen and accepted as a perfect and complete reality in his imagination. And when he was finished, his statue seemed to breathe. It was not a monument to his effort. It was a living testament to his vision. You are that sculptor, and the circumstances of your life are that block of marble. The great mistake is to believe that you must fight your circumstances, that you must struggle against the hard stone of your reality to force it into a shape you desire. That is the path of lycomie, the path of exhaustion, of anxiety, of struggle. The path of the master, the path of Phaedrus, is to understand this profound truth. Your desire, in its perfect and complete form, already exists. It is a finished, living reality within the vast world of your imagination. You are not creating your desire. It is already created. Your work is not to fight the stone of your present reality. Your work is to go within in quiet contemplation and see your wish fulfilled, to accept it, to feel it as real, and then your work in the outer world is simply a joyful act of chipping away all that is not it, all the doubts, all the fears, all the contradictory thoughts and feelings that veil the masterpiece that you have already accepted as finished within. So what then is a true imaginal act? It is not the idle daydreaming of the drifter. It is a disciplined, focused, and creative act with its own specific mechanics. First, an imaginal act must always be experienced in the first person. You are not watching a film of yourself being successful. You are the successful man. You must feel the chair you are sitting in. You must feel the handshake. You must see the world from the perspective of the person you desire to be. The subconscious mind is only impressed by direct experience, and an imaginal act is a controlled, direct experience. Second, an imaginal act must always be of the wish fulfilled. Do not imagine the process, the journey, the way it might happen. To imagine the process is to confess that it has not yet happened. You must go to the end. If you desire a home, do not imagine the process of searching for it or signing the papers. Imagine yourself already living in it. Stand in the living room. Feel the carpet beneath your feet. Touch the furniture. Look out the window. Feel the deep, satisfying feeling. It is done. I am home. Third, an imaginal act must be rich with sensory vividness. The more senses you can incorporate, the more real it becomes to your subconscious. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you touch? What do you smell? What do you feel? Condense your desire into a single, short, sensory-rich moment that implies the fulfillment of your wish, and experience it over and over until it takes on the tones of reality. This is the work. This is the art. It is the discipline of controlling your inner world, your true reality. This is what it means to operate from the first principle. It is to accept that you are not a creature of the physical world, but the creator of it, and that your primary tool of creation is your own wonderful, disciplined human imagination. This operates by an immutable law, which we can call the law of identical harvest. Your imagination is the seed. Your subconscious mind is the fertile, impartial soil. Your physical world is the harvest. The soil does not judge the seed you plant. If you plant a seed of thistle, the soil will not give you a fig. It will, with perfect and impersonal obedience, give you a magnificent harvest of thistle. If you plant a seed of wheat, it will give you a bountiful harvest of wheat. The soil's only function is to multiply with perfect fidelity the nature of the seed it is given. Your subconscious mind is that soil. If you consistently plant the imaginal seeds of failure, of doubt, of lack, it will not judge you. It will faithfully produce for you a world filled with the living evidence of your inner plantings. If you, through discipline and faith, plant only the seeds of your wish fulfilled, it has no choice, produce a harvest, a physical world that is identical in nature to your imaginal act. You must stop looking at your current harvest of thorns and complaining. The harvest is merely the honest report of the seeds you have been planting. Do not fight the harvest. Go back to the soil. Go back to the only place where change is possible. Go back to your imagination. You now understand the ground upon which you stand. You know that your imagination is the one and only creative reality. But a blueprint, however perfect, is inert. A seed, however potent, will not sprout in dry ground. There is a force, a life-giving energy that must be added to your imaginal acts to animate them, to give them life, and to compel them to burst forth into the world of form. What is this living water that animates the blueprint and quickens the seed? That force, the very substance and energy of creation, is the subject of our next great principle. That force is feeling. In our last discourse, we established the great and foundational truth that your imagination is the one and only creative reality. We left behind the world of shadows, the world of Caesar, and entered the kingdom of cause, the workshop of God, which is your own mind. You are the sculptor, and you have seen the finished masterpiece sleeping within the marble of your own consciousness. But a vision, however perfect, is inert. A blueprint, however divine, remains but a drawing on a page. A seed, as we have said, however potent, will not sprout in dry and lifeless ground. This brings us to the most vital question of all. What is the power that breathes life into the forms of your imagination? What is the secret, creative fire that warms the seed into germination? What is the living water that animates the blueprint and compels the unseen to become seen? That force, my friends, is the Alpha and the Omega of creation. It is the language that the universe understands. It is the bridge of incidents, the substance of reality itself. That force is feeling, and we must now understand with absolute clarity that feeling is the secret. To begin, we must draw a great and profound distinction. The word feeling, as used by the world, is not the feeling that I speak of tonight. The world speaks of emotion. Emotion is a storm on the surface of the ocean. It is volatile, it is reactive, it is born of external circumstances. You receive good news, and you feel a fleeting excitement. You receive bad news, and you feel a wave of despair. Emotion is the effect of the world of Caesar. It is the puppet's dance, its strings pulled by the events of the day. The feeling I speak of is not the storm on the surface. It is the deep, silent, powerful current that moves in the depths of the ocean. It is not a reaction, it is a cause. It is not an emotion, it is a state of being. It is a quiet, profound, and steady assumption. It is the inner conviction, the unshakable inner tone of a thing being true. When you have truly assumed the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you can walk through the storms of fleeting emotion, anxiety, fear, excitement, and this deep underlying current of knowing remains undisturbed. It is the anchor of your soul in the reality you have chosen. Let me tell you a parable that you may grasp this distinction. In an ancient port city there lived two merchants, Demetrius and Theon. Both were men of ambition, and both had sent their entire fortunes out in a fleet of ships to trade in the Far East. Their return, laden with silks and spices, would make both men kings in their city. But a great and terrible storm had swept through the southern seas, and for weeks there was no word. Demetrius, the first merchant, was a man of the world. He spent his days at the docks, his eyes scanning the empty horizon, his heart a tempest of emotion. He would experience moments of frantic hope, imagining his ships cresting the waves and then plummet into the depths of despair, imagining them splintered on the rocks. He would go to the temples and pray, but his prayers were not acts of faith. They were bargains born of fear. He was thinking of his desire, but he was feeling the profound reality of his potential loss. He was a prisoner of the mirror, his inner state a perfect reflection of the terrifying uncertainty outside. Theon, the second merchant, was a student of the law. He too knew of the storm, but after one initial moment of concern, he did something radical. He turned his back to the sea. He refused to look for evidence in the world of shadows. He retreated into the workshop of his own mind. There, in the quiet of his study, he did not hope for his ship's return. He did not plead. He simply, calmly, and with a profound sense of relief, assumed that they had already arrived safely. He brought forth the feeling of a successful venture completed. He felt the immense relief washing over him. He felt the deep satisfaction of his gamble paying off. He smelled the salt and spices in his own warehouse. He rehearsed conversations with the captains, congratulating them. He did this until this feeling of "it is done" became his natural abiding state. It was no longer a hope. It was a memory of a future event. Then he went out into the city. While Demetrius was wringing his hands at the docks, Theon was visiting the moneylenders not to ask for extensions, but to arrange new loans for his next even grander venture, using the collateral of the cargo that was, in the world of Caesar, still missing. He went to the guild hall and began pre-selling his silks and spices at a great profit. He was not pretending. He was not being foolishly optimistic. He was acting naturally and without effort from the absolute inner conviction of his assumption. His feeling was his fact. Weeks later, a lookout spotted the fleet, battered but intact. Every ship had weathered the storm and sailed safely into the harbor. Demetrius fell to his knees, weeping with the emotional release of his torment. His prayer had been answered. But Theon, when he heard the news, simply nodded with a quiet smile. He was not surprised. He was not even relieved, for he had already been living in a state of relief for weeks. He was merely observing the arrival of the physical shadow that was compelled to follow the substance of his own sustained feeling. Do you see the difference? Demetrius was thinking of his desire while feeling its opposite. Theon was living from his desire in the feeling of its fulfillment. That is the secret. Your feeling is your true prayer. The universe does not respond to the words you say. It responds to the state of being from which you say them. But how does this work? What is the mechanism? Your subconscious mind is the faithful, impersonal womb of creation. It is the fertile soil we spoke of. It does not understand the logical, argumentative language of your conscious mind. It understands only the language of being, the language of feeling. When you hold an imaginal act in your mind, it is like a seed held in your hand. But when you clothe that imaginal act in the feeling of its reality, it is as if you have now planted that seed in the fertile, dark soil of your subconscious. The feeling is what impregnates the subconscious. It is the life-giving energy that quickens the seed and begins the process of germination, hidden from your mortal eye. Once the subconscious accepts a seed, once it accepts a feeling as true, its power is absolute. It is the faithful servant that cannot fail. It directs all the forces of the universe. It moves through all people. It influences all events to bring your inner assumption to birth in the outer world. It will build for you a bridge of incidents, often in the most miraculous and unexpected ways, to lead you from your present state to the fulfillment of your assumption. You do not need to build the bridge. You only need to walk in the feeling of being already on the other side. This is why you must become the great actor we spoke of earlier. The world is your stage. Your life is a play, and you are its only author and its lead performer. But you have been playing the part that your past has written for you. You have been faithfully reciting the lines of lack, of limitation, of disappointment, because that is the role you believe you have been assigned. I am here to tell you that you can choose a new role at any moment. Your desire is that new role. Do you wish to play the part of the wealthy man? Then you must stop reciting the lines of poverty. You must go within and ask yourself, how would I feel if I were already fabulously wealthy? Find that feeling. It may be a feeling of security, of ease, of freedom, of generosity. Once you have found that feeling, you must wear it. Wear it like a magnificent garment under the rags of your present circumstances. Walk through your day feeling the quiet confidence of the wealthy man. Make your decisions from that feeling. Speak from that feeling. This is not about deceiving others. It is about being authentic to the greater reality that you have established within. You are not pretending. You are rehearsing for your inevitable debut. The greatest pitfall, the reason most men fail, is the sin of contradiction. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot attempt to feel well for 5 minutes in the morning and then spend the rest of the day feeling and complaining about lack. Your dominant feeling always wins. The subconscious mind is a creature of habit and honors your most persistent, most deeply felt conviction. If you affirm abundance but feel the sting of every small expense, your feeling of lack is your true prayer, and it will be answered with more lack. Therefore, your great work is to achieve a state of inner unity. Your thoughts and your feelings must be in alignment. You must dare to feel the reality of your wish fulfilled, and you must remain faithful to that feeling as a loyal wife is faithful to her husband. You must give your desire your name and your protection. Do not look to the world for permission to feel what you desire to feel. The world is a lagging indicator. It is the report of yesterday's news. You are the headline of tomorrow. Dare to assume you are the man or woman you want to be, long before the world has any evidence of it. Clothe yourself in the feeling of that reality. Let it sink into your being until it is no longer a conscious effort, but your natural state. When you do this, you are no longer trying to make something happen. You are simply allowing what is already true in imagination to manifest. You are no longer the frantic rower fighting the current. You have become the river itself, flowing effortlessly and inevitably to the great ocean of your fulfilled desire. This, then, is the heart of the great secret. Your imagination is the blueprint, but feeling is the builder. It is the language that speaks worlds into existence. But as you begin this great work, as you dare to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you will be confronted by a great and terrible adversary. An adversary so convincing, so powerful, that it has held humanity in its thrall for millennia. It is the roaring legion of your own five senses, the tyrant of appearances. And to truly become the master of your destiny, you must now learn to dethrone it. We must now turn to the great obstacle, the tyranny of the senses. We are now at the very heart of this teaching. If this fundamental truth, that your own feeling is the creative power that shapes your world, resonates deep within your soul, I invite you to continue this journey of mastery with us. The principles we explore here are not mere motivation. They are the very mechanics of reality. Subscribe to this channel now and press the notification bell so you do not miss the deeper explorations to come. By subscribing, you are making a conscious choice to become the master of your reality, not its victim. Now, let us return to the great adversary that stands in your way. In our journey thus far, we have unlocked the two great creative secrets of the universe. First, we establish the primacy of imagination as the one and only reality, the causal substance from which all things are made. Second, we discovered that feeling is the secret, the sacred language that impresses our desires upon the creative power within, compelling the unseen to become seen. You have been given the key to the kingdom. You have been handed the architect's blueprint and the builder's most powerful tool. You have stood in the sanctuary of your mind, clothed yourself in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, and have planted a divine and perfect seed in the fertile soil of your consciousness. But the moment you turn that key in the lock, the moment you plant that seed in the ground, you will be confronted by a great and terrible adversary. An adversary so convincing, so powerful, and so relentless that it has held humanity in its thrall for millennia. It is the adversary that causes the vast majority of men and women to abandon their dreams and to conclude that this law does not work. This adversary is not an external force. It is not a devil or a demon. It is a tyrant that lives within your very own perception. We must now, with the courage of a warrior and the wisdom of a sage, confront, dethrone, and master the great obstacle, the tyranny of the senses. Your five senses, your sight, your hearing, your touch, your taste, and your smell are not your guides to reality. They are the guards of the prison of your past. They are magnificent and convincing liars. Their sole function is to report on a world that has already been created. They are historians, not prophets. They can only tell you what was, based on the assumptions you held yesterday. They can tell you nothing of what is now coming to be, based on the new assumption you have just dared to embrace. The moment you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you have created a new fact in the one and only true reality, which is your imagination. But the world of shadows, the world of Caesar, moves more slowly. It is a world of process and delay. There is an interval of time between your inner assumption and its outer physical manifestation. This interval is the great and holy testing ground. It is the desert through which you must walk, guided only by faith, before you reach the promised land. And in this desert, the tyranny of the senses will be your greatest tempter. You will assume the feeling of wealth, and your senses will scream at you, showing you an empty bank account and a stack of unpaid bills. You will assume the feeling of being loved, and your senses will show you an empty room and a silent telephone. You will assume the feeling of perfect health, and your senses will report a persistent pain or a lingering symptom. The senses will present this evidence to the courtroom of your conscious mind, and they will say, with all the authority of fact, look, nothing has changed. Your little game of imagination is a failure. Be reasonable. Accept the hard, cold facts. This is reality. And the average man, untrained in this law, listens to the convincing testimony of his senses. His heart sinks. The glorious feeling of his wish fulfilled evaporates, replaced by the old, familiar feeling of lack and disappointment. He has lost faith. He has abandoned his assumption. And in doing so, he has aborted the divine child that was gestating in the womb of his consciousness. Let me tell you a parable of two farmers that you may understand this test. Two farmers were given a single, perfect, and seemingly magical seed. They were told, plant this seed and have faith, and it will yield a harvest beyond your wildest dreams. The first farmer, a man who lived by the evidence of his senses, took the seed and planted it in a fertile plot of ground. He was filled with excitement, but the next morning he rushed to the field and saw nothing but the same brown earth. A flicker of anxiety entered his mind. The second day he returned, and still there was only dirt. His anxiety grew. He began to doubt. Was the seed truly magical? Have I been deceived? On the third day, his doubt turned to panic. Consumed by the need for evidence, for proof, he got down on his hands and knees and frantically began to dig in the soil, searching for a sign of progress. He unearthed the seed and saw that a tiny, fragile sprout had just begun to emerge. But in his desperate act of seeking proof, he had exposed the delicate process to the harsh sun and the dry air, and the sprout withered and died. He stood up, brushed the dirt from his hands, and cursed the man who gave him the seed, declaring him a fraud. His senses had shown him only dirt, and he had believed his senses. The second farmer, a master of the law, planted his seed in the very same way. He too was filled with a quiet joy, and on the next morning, he too saw nothing but brown earth. But he was not disturbed. He did not look for evidence on the surface, for he knew the great work was happening in the unseen, in the darkness of the soil. He knew that the law of germination is perfect and cannot fail. Instead of looking for proof, he began to walk his field, not with a feeling of hope, but with a feeling of deep and profound gratitude for the magnificent harvest that he knew was now inevitable. Days turned into weeks, and still there was little to see. His neighbors, men of the senses, mocked him. Look at the fool, celebrating a field of dirt. But he paid them no mind. He was not living by the evidence of their world. He was living by the certainty of his inner vision. He did not need to see the sprout to know the life within the seed was working. His faith was his evidence. He began to prepare his barns for the coming abundance. He acted as if the harvest were already a fact, and then, in its own appointed hour, the first green shoots appeared, and they grew with a strength and vitality that was miraculous to behold, until his entire field was a sea of gold, and his harvest was indeed greater than anything the land had ever known. He had not defied the evidence of his senses. He had simply refused to grant it creative power. His faith was his loyalty to his unseen reality. You must become that second farmer. Once you have planted your seed, your imaginal act clothed in feeling, your work is to remain faithful to it. You must turn your back on the world of appearances and walk in the assumption that it is done. This is the art of detachment. Detachment does not mean you no longer care about your desire. It means the very opposite. It means you are so secure in the knowledge that it is already yours in reality, that you are completely detached from any need to see it in the world of shadows. Detachment is the release of anxiety. It is the release of the desperate need to control the how and the when. It is the quiet, sovereign confidence that the creative power within you, having been given its command, is now handling all the details. To cultivate this state of detachment and faith, you must practice what I call a mental diet. Just as you would not eat poison if you wish to be healthy, you must not consume poisonous thoughts and feelings if you wish to be mentally and spiritually powerful. A mental diet is the active, moment-to-moment refusal to give audience to any thought, any feeling, any conversation, or any piece of information that contradicts your assumption. When a thought of doubt arises, you do not fight it. You simply turn your attention away from it, as you would turn away from something you do not wish to purchase in a shop. You let it pass without giving it any of your precious energy. When a friend begins to speak of lack and limitation, you either gently change the subject, or you lovingly excuse yourself from the conversation. You are the guardian at the gate of your mind, and you must become ruthless in denying entry to any spy or traitor that would seek to undermine the new king. You have enthroned the feeling of your wish fulfilled. This is the great test of persistence. The universe will test your loyalty to your new reality. It will parade before you all the convincing evidence of your old state. It will ask you again and again, in 1,000 different ways, whom do you believe? Me, the solid, tangible world of fact, or the invisible, phantom-like feeling within your own heart? Your persistence in your assumption is your answer. Every time you are confronted with a contradiction and you calmly return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you have cast your vote for your new reality. You have demonstrated your faith. You have passed the test. And as you persist, you will begin to cultivate the ultimate state of creative power, the Sabbath. In the ancient scriptures, God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh he rested. This is not a story about a literal week. It is a psychological drama of creation. The 6 days are the inner work, the choosing of the desire, the crafting of the imaginal act, the clothing of it in feeling. The Sabbath is the seventh day. It is a state of consciousness. It is the state of perfect rest and stillness that comes when you know that the work is finished. It is a feeling of profound peace. You are no longer hoping. You are no longer trying. You are no longer even imagining. You have arrived at a quiet, unshakable inner knowing that it is done. There is nothing more for you to do on the creative plane. You have successfully impregnated the subconscious, and now you simply rest in the certainty of the inevitable birth. When you have achieved the true Sabbath, you can look upon the most chaotic and contradictory circumstances without a flicker of anxiety, for you know they are but shadows, and the reality is already an accomplished fact within you. This is your great work, to look upon the world of lack and remain unmoved in your feeling of abundance, to look upon the world of loneliness and remain faithful to your feeling of love, to ignore the roaring legion of your 5 senses and to listen only to the quiet, certain whisper of your own assumption. But how, you may ask, does one maintain this loyalty, this disciplined detachment in the noise and chaos of the waking day? How does one find the strength to ignore the constant convincing reports of the senses? There is a time, there's a place, a sacred workshop, where the tyrant of the senses grows weak, where the conscious mind is quieted, and where the gateway to the creative source is thrown wide open. It is in this workshop that you can do your most potent creative work, shielded from the doubts and fears of the outer world. We must now turn to this final practical key, the sacred workshop of the state akin to sleep. We have now journeyed through the great principles of creation. We have established that your imagination is the one and only reality, and that feeling is the secret force that brings your imaginal acts to life. We have also confronted the great adversary, the tyranny of the senses, the constant convincing reports from the outer world that attempt to keep you chained to your past. You have been taught to remain faithful to your inner assumption, to walk by faith and not by sight, and to practice a disciplined mental diet. But the question remains, and it is the most practical question of all: how does one maintain this loyalty to the unseen in the midst of the noise and chaos of the waking day? How does one find the strength to ignore the constant, roaring evidence of the senses? There is an answer. There is a time, a place, a sacred interval where the tyrant of the senses grows weak, where the conscious arguing mind is quieted, and where the gateway to the creative source of all things is thrown wide open. This is not a place you must travel to. It is a state you must learn to enter. It is the master key that bypasses the guards of the prison of the past. It is the practical workshop where you will do your most profound creative work, shielded from the doubts and fears of the outer world. We have now come to the final practical instruction of this doctrine. We must now enter the sacred workshop, the state akin to sleep. Every day of your life is framed by 2 sacred gates: the moment you fall asleep and the moment you awaken. These 2 moments are the most important of your entire day, for they are the moments when you are in the closest communion with your subconscious mind, the great creative power within you. The vast majority of humanity passes through these gates unconsciously, and in doing so, they condemn themselves to a life of repetition. The average man, at the end of a difficult day, carries his troubles with him to his bed. He falls asleep, replaying his arguments, worrying about his bills, feeling the sting of his failures and frustrations. His last waking moments are a baptism in the feeling of lack and limitation. He is in effect giving his subconscious mind his final dominant instruction for the night. This is what is real. Give me more of this. And the subconscious, ever faithful, obeys. He awakens the next morning into a world that is prepared to offer him the very same set of problems, for he has commanded it to be so. But you are not the average man. You will learn to use these sacred gates with deliberate creative intent. You will no longer fall asleep as a prisoner of your day. You will go to sleep as the architect of your morrow. Let me tell you a parable that you may understand the power of this moment. Imagine a great and wise king who wished to transform his city from a place of stone and wood into a marvel of gold and marble. During the day, the king's court was a place of chaos. It was filled with his advisors. The advisor of finance, who spoke only of budgets and limitations. The advisor of engineering, who spoke of technical difficulties. The advisor of public opinion, who spoke of fear and doubt. And the royal historian, who constantly reminded the king of all his past failures. Whenever the king tried to speak of his new city, these advisors would shout him down with their facts, their reasons, and their logic. No clear decree could ever be issued in the noise of this court. But the king was wise. He knew that these advisors, for all their noise, held no true power. The true power lay in the royal decree, which, once issued in the proper way, could not be disobeyed. And so, the king learned to wait. He waited until the sun had set, the court had emptied, and all his noisy, arguing advisors had gone to their beds. In the dead of night, the king would rise and walk alone to the great silent royal chamber. There, in the profound stillness, with no one to argue or contradict him, he would stand and issue his decree for the new city. He would speak into the silence, not of the city he had, but of the city he now commanded to be. He would describe the golden towers, the marble halls, and the joyful citizens, not as a future hope, but as a present fact. In the silence, his word was not a suggestion, it was law. This decree, issued without opposition from the conscious waking court, was received by the unseen builders of the kingdom, and they would work through the night in ways the advisors could not comprehend to make the king's word a reality. The next morning, the advisors would awaken to find that the very foundations of the city had begun to shift, and they could do nothing but marvel at the power of the king's command. My friends, your waking mind is that noisy court, filled with the contradictory voices of your senses, your fears, your doubts, and your past failures. But the state akin to sleep is your royal chamber. It is the holy of holies of your own consciousness, and it is in this state that you, the king, will issue your unchallengeable decree. Let us now become practical artisans. I will give you the precise, mechanical steps to operate in this sacred workshop. This is not a theory. It is a technique. Step 1, the preparation, releasing the day. Before you lie down, you must perform a mental cleansing. You cannot enter the creative state while clinging to the grievances and anxieties of the day. You must, in your imagination, wash your hands of the world of Caesar. Forgive everyone who has wronged you that day, not for their sake, but for yours, so that you do not carry their image with you into the creative act. And most importantly, forgive yourself for any perceived failures or mistakes. The past is dead. It has no power over you unless you give it life by dwelling upon it. Arrive at your bed as a blank slate, a pure creative spirit, ready to write the script for a new day. Step 2, the physical stillness, entering the state. Lie down on your back with your head at a level that is comfortable, not propped up by too many pillows. Close your eyes and let your attention drift. The goal is to induce a state of profound physical relaxation that borders on paralysis, while maintaining a passive mental control. Begin to feel a heaviness in your body. Feel yourself sinking into the bed. You will reach a point where your body feels immense, inert, and you have no desire to move a single finger. You may feel a slight vibration or hear a humming sound. Do not be alarmed. These are signs that you are on the threshold. You have successfully quieted the conscious physical man, and the gate to the subconscious is now ajar. Step 3, the construction of the scene. Now, in this drowsy, immobile state, you will construct your imaginal scene. This scene must be crafted with care, according to specific rules. First, it must imply the wish is already fulfilled. Do not imagine the process of getting your desire. That implies you do not yet have it. Go to the end. Second, it must be short, simple, and centered on a single action. A complex scene will engage your conscious mind. A short, simple scene can be looped easily. Third, it must involve you. You are not a spectator watching a film. You are the actor, seeing through your own eyes, feeling with your own hands. And finally, it must be rich with sensory vividness, designed to evoke the one thing that matters, the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Let me give you examples. If you desire marriage, do not imagine a complex wedding ceremony. Instead, condense it to this simple act. You are in bed, and your physical hand is exploring the simple, solid, sensory feel of a wedding band. On your fourth finger, feel the smooth metal. That is all. The presence of the ring implies the entire state of marriage. If you desire recognition for your work, do not imagine the long road to success. Imagine this one simple scene. Your friend or your superior is shaking your hand. Feel the firm grip of their hand. See the admiration in their eyes, and hear them say, clear as day, congratulations on your tremendous success. If you desire health, do not imagine the process of healing. Imagine your doctor looking at you in amazement and saying, it's a miracle. You are in perfect health. Feel the profound relief and joy of hearing those words. Step 4, the loop and the lullaby. Having chosen your short, feeling tone scene, you must now repeat it over and over again without effort. Do not strain. Simply allow the scene to replay itself in your mind. This rhythmic repetition acts as a lullaby. It sings your conscious, reasoning mind, the noisy court of advisors, into a deep and final sleep. And as the conscious mind sleeps, you are speaking directly, powerfully, and without opposition to the subconscious. You are impressing it with the reality of your fulfilled desire. Step 5, the surrender, drifting off in the assumption. This is the final and most crucial act. You must continue to loop your scene until you drift off into sleep while still in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must fall asleep in your new reality. This is the act of sealing the decree. It is the final, unshakable command given to your faithful servant. You have carried your assumption with you through the sacred gate of sleep. Having done this, the work is finished. The king has issued his decree. The seed has been planted. The subconscious has been impregnated. It will now work tirelessly while your conscious mind sleeps and while you go about your day to objectify this assumption in your world. The morning after, your discipline must be one of faith. Upon waking, do not immediately look to the mirror of the world for evidence. To do so is to play the part of the anxious farmer, digging up his seed. Resist the urge. The wise farmer, having planted his seed, does not return the next morning with a shovel. He returns with a bucket of water. He goes about his day knowing the seed is in the ground, and it is obeying the law of its own nature. You must do the same. Go about your day knowing that your assumption, having been successfully planted, is obeying the law of its own nature and is moving inevitably toward its physical birth. This, then, is your sacred workshop. This is the art and the science of prayer. It is not a petition to an external God. It is the commanding of the God within. It is the most practical, the most powerful, and the most creative act you will ever perform. You have been given the theory of creation. You have been given the warning against the tyranny of your senses. And now You have been given the key to the workshop where you can perform your creative work in peace, free from all opposition. What remains is to synthesize this knowledge, to bring all these principles together into a single unified state of being. What remains is for you to step fully into the consciousness that you are not a creature of circumstance, but the one and only creator of your world, the operant power. We have now come to the end of our instruction and to the true beginning of your life. We have traveled far tonight, journeying from the land of shadows into the kingdom of substance. We have walked a sacred path, and at each step we have unlocked a great and eternal principle of creation. First, we established the great foundation, the primacy of imagination, understanding that our own imaginal activity is the one and only creative reality, the very substance of God from which all things are made. We then learn the secret language of this creative power, discovering that feeling is the secret, the living force that animates our visions and compels the unseen to become seen. We confronted the great adversary, the tyranny of the senses, and learned the art of detachment, the discipline of remaining faithful to our inner vision in the face of all outer contradiction. And finally, we were given the key to the sacred workshop, learning the practical art of using the state awaken to sleep, to bypass the conscious God and impress our desires directly upon the all-powerful subconscious mind. The tools have been given, the laws have been revealed. The path from the man who is a creature of circumstance to the man who is a creator of circumstance has been made perfectly clear. What remains now is not to learn, but to become. We must now synthesize these great truths into a single living, breathing state of being. We must now fully define and step into the consciousness of the man or woman you were always destined to be, the operant power. Who is this being? The operant power is not merely a slightly improved version of your old self. It is a new creature entirely. It is the awakened imagination, the man who knows that he himself is the cause of the phenomena of his life. Let us dissect the anatomy of this new consciousness, that you may recognize it and claim it as your own. First, the operant power lives in a state of sovereign causality. He no longer sees the world as something that happens to him. He knows the world as something that proceeds from him. He has completely and permanently abandoned the victim mindset. He never blames. He does not blame his past, his parents, his government, or his circumstances for his results. To do so would be to declare that a shadow has power over the object which casts it. It would be an act of spiritual treason against his own divinity. Instead, he takes absolute 100% ownership of his life. Every result, both the so-called successes and the so-called failures, he recognizes as his own harvest, the direct and lawful result of the seeds he himself has planted in his own imagination. This is not a heavy burden. It is the ultimate freedom. For the moment you take complete responsibility for your life is the moment you reclaim the absolute power to change it. Second, the operant power is a being who is free from the past. He knows that time is an illusion of the senses. The past does not exist except as a memory trace in his own mind. It has no power to create unless he gives it that power by revisiting it and reanimating it with his feelings. Therefore, he does not look back unless it is to revise an event, to rewrite history in his imagination, to conform to a more noble outcome. He knows that his reality is created in the eternal. Now, through the imaginal act he is performing at this very moment, he is not the product of his past. He is the product of his present assumption. And third, the operant power lives and thinks from the fourth dimension. He is not a man looking at a flat, two-dimensional picture of his desire. He has stepped through the picture frame. He lives in his desired reality, in his imagination, long before it is objectified in the world of space and time. He walks through his day feeling the reality of his wish fulfilled, not as a hope or a dream, but as a present, though invisible, fact. His true home is not the world of shadows. His true home is his own wonderful human imagination. Let me tell you a final parable, the parable of the heir. Imagine a great and benevolent king who had only one son, the heir to his vast and magnificent kingdom. But as a child, the prince suffered a blow to the head and was stricken with amnesia. Lost and confused, he wandered away from the palace and was raised in a remote village as a pauper. For years, he lived the life of a beggar. He knew only lack and limitation. Every day, he would travel to the gates of the great city and stand outside the very palace that was his own, begging for scraps of bread from the royal guards. He would look upon the golden towers and the abundant feast within, and he would hope with all his heart that the great king might one day show him favor. He was begging for the crumbs from his own table, unaware of his true identity. He was a prince living in the self-imposed state of a pauper. One day, a wise old advisor to the king, a man who had known the prince since birth, found him at the gates. The old man looked into the pauper's eyes and saw the flash of royalty within. He took the boy aside and began to speak to him of his true nature. He told him, "You are not a beggar. You are the king's son. All that you see before you is yours by birthright." At first, the boy could not believe it. The evidence of his senses, the memory of his entire life of poverty, contradicted the old man's words. It seemed like a cruel joke. But the advisor persisted. He pointed to a simple signet ring that the boy wore on a cord around his neck, the one thing he had from his forgotten past. That ring, the advisor said, is the royal seal. It is the proof of your identity. It holds the power to command the entire kingdom. A flicker of remembrance, a deep and profound feeling stirred within the boy. He began to feel a shift. The feeling of being a pauper began to fade, and a new, strange, yet deeply familiar feeling of authority, of royalty, began to take its place. The next day, he did not return to the gates to beg. He walked straight to them. The guards, who had seen him as a beggar the day before, now saw something different in his eyes, in his posture. They saw the heir, and they opened the gates without a word. He walked into the palace, not with the timid hope of a guest, but with the quiet certainty of the master. He did not ask for the feast. He knew the feast was his. He had not changed the palace. He had changed his consciousness of himself, and in changing his own state of being, from that of a pauper to that of a prince, the entire world rearranged itself to conform to his new assumption. My friends, you are that heir. You are the child of the King, the creator of the universe. And this vast, abundant, magnificent world is your kingdom. But you have been living in a state of spiritual amnesia, standing at the gates of your own inheritance, begging for the small things, a better job, a little more money, a little more love, unaware that the entire kingdom is already yours. This teaching, this doctrine, is your royal advisor, reminding you of who you truly are. And your imagination is your signet ring. It is the royal seal, the proof of your divine identity. It is the power that can command your entire world to conform to your will. Cease your begging, cease your pleading with the outer world. The time has come to remember who you are and to claim your birthright. As you begin to walk in this new consciousness of the operant power, you will find yourself liberated from the greatest of all human anxieties, the anxiety of the how. The man who lives as a slave to his senses is constantly tormented by the question, how will my desire come to pass? He tries to plan, to scheme, to manipulate, to force the events of the world into a logical sequence that will lead to his goal. He is trying to be the general, the clerk, and the foot soldier all at once. It is an exhausting and futile task. The awakened man, the operant power, knows that the how is not his concern. The how is the domain of Caesar. It is the business of the infinitely wise servant within you, your subconscious mind. Your job is not to build the bridge of incidents. Your job is to live in the feeling of being already on the other side. To concern yourself with the how is to demote yourself from the chairman of the board to a worried clerk in the mailroom. It is an admission of doubt. It is a confession that you do not truly believe in the creative power that you are. When you have truly assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you will feel a profound sense of peace and release. You will no longer be anxious about the means. You will watch the events of your life unfold, sometimes in the most unexpected and marvelous ways, with a quiet and joyful curiosity, knowing that all things are working together to bring your assumption to birth. You have given the command. You must now trust the servant to execute it. And so, we have come to the end of our instruction and to the true beginning of your new life. The blueprints have been revealed. The laws have been made plain. The path from the average to a life of divine creation is now and forever clear to you. The time for learning the theory is over. The time for living the truth has begun. I charge you now, from this day forward, to see yourself not as a creature of circumstance, but as the creator of circumstance. I charge you to abandon the battlefield of the senses and to live in the serene and powerful sanctuary of your own imagination. I charge you to remember that your desire is not a thing to be earned, but a gift to be accepted. I charge you to live from the end, to walk in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, as though it were more real than the very ground beneath your feet. I charge you to never again look to another for that which is already within you. And I charge you to remember that the world is only your mirror. If you wish to see a world of joy, of abundance, and of love, you must first become, in the depths of your own soul, the living embodiment of that joy, that abundance, and that love. The great and final promise of this doctrine is the profound peace that comes from truly living in the state of it is done. It is the end of anxiety. It is the end of desperate hope, which is but a confession of present lack. It is the beginning of a quiet, unshakable, and all-powerful knowing. There is no need to struggle. There is no need to chase. There is no need to doubt. Simply feel it as real. Believe it as done. And it must be so. The power to shape your world is, and always has been, within you. This was not a lecture, but a remembrance of who you truly are. If you are committed to living as the creator you were born to be, and to continue the deep exploration of these life-altering truths, I invite you to make this commitment formal. Subscribe to this channel and join a community of fellow architects, all dedicated to the great work of building a more noble reality from the inside out. Your journey has just begun. Thank you.